to 2-3 years, there are probably an estimated 400 to 500 homes that are yet to be built that all the construction trucks will pass over a portion of River Bend Way. Most of those trucks will go over that section that we want to fix. I forgot when I talked to you the other day, in the estimate, there's another section at the end of River Bend Way that's going to traverse the whole way when they finally build out that section. There's at least 400 to 500 homes, almost all of which the trucks will travel over that. So not doing the permanent fix for the $450,000 we thought it might cost is probably a pretty smart move. But I really think we can't afford to let this go. Gene last summer mentioned to me that the street was in really bad shape, and you know, when you look at something and it's not so good, you kind of tend to not look at it closely, but when you really look at it closely, it's really in really bad shape. And the roundabout was the asphalt finish was put on top of concrete, and it's just ripping up. There's an inch and a half, maybe an inch of asphalt on top of concrete, and it was never done right. And when you walk down that street and really look closely at it, there were 3 or 4 different asphalt pores, if you want to call it that, that changed complexion and texture. Some were better than others. There's some curbs that are a problem. It's a mess. It needs to be at least temporarily fixed, and the emergency on this, and we were talking about it now, is simply that our window is closing. It's a fairly big project, and the window is closing. Either we do it soon or we're going to have to wait till spring. So did you have a question of me, Sandy? Or did you just want to say something? Go ahead.
No, Mr. Goodman had raised his hand. Go ahead.
I, too, have traveled down that street. It is in great disrepair, especially for a school system, having a school there. I will say, as far as River Green and Great Sky and some of those areas, they all need a lot of repair. And we have not done much repair. We were cutting down the debt for years, and we're finally getting to the point where we have money to repair these streets, and that should be number one on our list this year, is repairing a lot of streets. It's just like we did when we did the infrastructure of the water lines through the city of Canton. It's time to start doing the streets, and that one is a great one to start with. And as we all know, the LCI program will help a little bit, but we're going to have to cough up some money and do some streets this year, and I look forward to doing that.
Ms. McGrew.
I do agree we need to fix the street. I'm all on board on that. Do we understand that part?
I did.
You talking to me? I do, Sam. And the only thing I said is that if it wasn't for the school, we would probably be able to delay. I just don't think it's a smart thing to do when there's a
And
school.
like I said,
there.
the school is
Yeah.
a soft spot for me, so I'm on board.
Well, I'm trying to get you off thin support for this to make it a little thicker support.
Well, I'm not going to
Thank you.
vote against it.
No, I know you aren't.
I am not.
I know.
I mean, our citizens need this, and I want to do all I can for our citizens.
If you came out and were standing on that street, it would be bouncing. So not because it's in terrible shape.
It's going to happen.
Yeah,
We're just
we'll
beating a
fix
dead horse now.
There's one section right around one of the manholes that looks like it's collapsing. It's down about 6-8 inches. So not good.
Mr. Huffman.
In listening to the conversation, as well as going back a few years, we all recognize that we do have a major problem in streets. And what I'm hearing, excuse me, is that the problem is so big that to go in and fix the streets correctly, the cost of doing that versus doing a temporary fix, we tend to lean towards a temporary fix because that's what we can afford. I think the city might be ready for a bond issue to go ahead and bite the bullet on the streets and put it up for a vote for the citizens and put a bond out to redo these streets but fix them correctly, not temporary fixes. And let's bite the bullet and move forward on that. That would be my solution. Of course, I'm a lame duck, but that's the one. Just my comment.
Thank you. Ms. Rust.
If we had $10 million to fix the streets, I would still recommend a temporary fix for Riverbend Way, because when you've got construction trucks, 400 to 500 homes being built, driven over that, no matter how good we fix it now, we might have to do some fixes in 2-3 years when this construction gets pretty much finished. So I think temporary on this one, if we can save a couple $100,000 for the next 5 years, let's put it in Wooded Mountain Trail, and we'll make Sandy happy.
We could, if we just took the 1 or 2 streets we've talked about tonight, we could probably fix those correctly and handle it.
I think we have the money for that right now.
I do too.
Yeah, we do.
So, but we got many more streets that we just mentioned, some of them just by name. We don't have the money to fix all those correctly now.
We might.
That's where,
We have SPLOST money we have to spend on streets, about $2 million.
that's where the bond comes in.
$2 million. I think we have $2 million of SPLOST funds that are dedicated to streets. So I don't know how much of that, and we have no other place we can spend it.
Well, let's spend that, but I don't think that's going to fix everything.
You want to spend it as a lame duck?
No, I just think if we want to resolve the problem.
I agree.
If you just do temporaries, you're going to be doing temporary fixes for the next 5
In
10
this one,
years.
in this case, temporary is a poor word to use, but it's the best one for right now.
Well,
But I agree with you.
And that's fine. And
That's
that's
not-
fine for right now for this short term. I'm still suggesting is that we need to tackle the big picture.
I agree.
Yeah, Mr. Yon?
Mr. Russ brought up an issue that I wanted to ask. When we're doing our survey and ranking of the streets for repair, are we factoring in potential construction and heavy traffic that's not going to be ongoing when we're ranking our streets for repair?
We're trying to, and you'll see a map on at the next council meeting where we've gone through and we've identified all the streets within the city, and we've identified them in multiple categories, whether they're state-controlled routes within the city where they handle the maintenance, whether they're city-maintained streets, whether they truly are private streets, or whether they're these public streets that we've not had to maintain yet. They're in neighborhoods. They haven't been fully dedicated over to us for our maintenance purposes. The biggest issues that we seem to have as a city are some of those older roads that just haven't gotten the attention, and these streets that were developed in neighborhoods where, unfortunately, at some time, there just wasn't the great inspection being done to make sure that they were being built properly. And the first step is the city saying, yes, we agree that these are the streets that were dedicated to us that we're going to maintain, and then going out and calculating what the actual cost is associated with each of those streets. I mean, it should be set up that every year, once we get the streets in order, that we say we're going to pave 10% of them. And the public should be able to know that, you know, your street is coming up in 2 years, or your street is coming up in 3 years based on the schedule of roads. And if we have additional money, we can escalate the schedule. If we don't have additional money, we wait until the next year on those particular streets.
Mr. Russ?
Billy, you weren't here at the time, but about 2 or 3 years ago, I attended a meeting here at City Hall between the City of Canton, the county, and Board of Education, and GDOT, I think, was there too. There is a critical need for a light at the end of Riverbend Way when it accesses to 20. It had created enormous problems for a community called Franklin Park because they had a private street, and it was being traversed by school buses all day long. People would line up on their street and back up, and people couldn't get out of their homes in the morning when they go to work. There's a line of traffic blocking their access. Ultimately, we have to push the county, GDOT, whatever, to get a street light there, because that is part of the problem. People are accessing the traffic the wrong way. School buses would probably go in and out of that 20 entrance exit way if there was a stoplight there, but they don't because they have to wait too long. So they don't access it properly. It was never designed right. There should not be a school there without a stoplight there. It's a horrible situation. Some point we have to push it. And the reason why anybody was sitting in the meeting says it'll never, they all walked out and says it'll never happen, it's $250,000. Somebody's going to have to pony up someplace and do that. It's got to be done.
We
It's
have-
not, it's one of the big fixes that needs to be done right there.
We have a similar situation at Reservoir Drive and Reinhardt College Parkway with the Teasley traffic that comes out there, not having a light there at that location.
There's a stop sign there, right? I mean, it's a stop sign, I think, though, right?
No, Reinhardt keeps moving. You know, you have to, lots of vehicles cut through Great Sky so that they don't have to wait at that location because there's
Yeah.
not a light.
I think the school bus, up there with that new Teasley up there, that would make the same problem, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Peppers, I would suggest that, if you don't mind, if you would send a letter to the DOT, ask them to do a study for a traffic light at the end of Riverbend Way and State Route 20, because that will, it's going to be their decision anyway since it's a state route. But they would come out and do a study and an analysis and then come back to us, and we may not have to pay for the whole lot. You know, we may have to pay for some of it, but we may not have to pay for all of it. Mr. Huffman, do you have
Yes,
something?
one last question. Mr. Peppers, when you do this study or review of all the different streets that are in different categories in the repair necessary, when we talk about repair, that's a pretty general term, and tonight we've been talking about temporary repairs versus permanent repairs. So when you look at them and estimate what it's going to cost us, are you thinking temporary or are you thinking permanent?
No, I think you have to think about it permanently. You know, it is your water infrastructure, your sewer infrastructure, your stormwater infrastructure, and your roads. Those are the big ticket items for a city.
Right.
And if you don't have a good handle on those, if you don't have a methodology that you are constantly improving, constantly repairing, constantly maintaining those items, when you lose that control, you start seeing it across the board. And you can never, what you would spend in keeping up a routine pattern of maintenance, and by maintenance I mean repaving every so many years, making sure that sub bases are fine and things like that. When you skip that pattern, it gets more expensive. If we keep everything on a pattern, it will be the most
My point is,
financially feasible thing for the city to do to keep that pattern going through that study.
my point is that we have already skipped.
We're catching up.
Well, $2 million is not going to catch up if you're going to fix them right.
It's a good start.
It's a good, you're right, Mr. Rutz, it is only a start. If you want to fix them right, $2 million is not going to do it.
And frankly, until we have that full, until we understand the scope of the condition of the roads in the city, we don't know what that amount's going to be. And
That's
nobody's done that.
No, I totally agree.
So,
But that's the study that needs to be done.
yes, sir.
And then address the problem as bring it up to where it's at, just say, for sake of conversation, ground zero. Then you start the maintenance. But if we're starting maintenance now, we already had the skip. We skipped it the last 4 to 8 years. Now we want to just do the maintenance. We're in the stage you just described. We'll never catch up. We got to face the problem, and it might mean go with a bond to bring these streets up after the study. And how much that bond will be, I have no idea. Sure, keep the $2 million in there. Sure, it's there. We'll spend it. But that surely won't take care of what needs to be done.
We will catch up. It's going to take a while, no doubt, because of the condition that has existed for so long. But, you know, once we get started with this $2-3 million worth of work, hopefully we can get done in the next paving season next year. You know, the next time we have a SPLOST come available, my suggestion is we use most of that SPLOST for road improvements. And that's, you know, $6, $8, $10 million worth of work. At least it's a good start. I believe Mr. Grant had something here.
I'm probably just being repetitive here, but it's my understanding that we're going to have some information to look at on the conditions of the roads at the next meeting. I understand the urgency of Riverbend Way, and again, I'm in support of that. But I think until we have a plan and have that prioritization that this council votes on and sticks to, we're going to continue to have this issue, and we're going to continue to have questions about this street over this street or that street. But I think we do need to get that schedule, and we need to commit to that as soon as possible to avoid this situation going forward, and for us making objective calls about which street needs to be fixed next. So, but I would just
That's where
urge
we
us
need
to
that
get to that
overall
sooner rather than later.
comprehensive
So
plan. We
I
need
feel
that.
much more comfortable making decisions like this on emergency repairs when we have a clearer picture of the overall situation and what our priorities are. So.
Mr. Rust, you had something? Ms. McGrath?
Thank you. On the agenda, it says discussion of the condition of Riverbend Way. That was what was on the agenda for tonight. What is our objective and what is our goal for this meeting about Riverbend Way?
Our goal was to get a concurrence, hopefully, from the council that we move forward with putting this on the agenda for the next meeting. So it will have been discussed here tonight, and that if need be, we could vote at our October 1st meeting.
I make a motion, we put this on the agenda for the October work session so we can move forward.
Those in favor? Opposed, no? Thank you.
I just had one.
Mr. Rust?
Billy, I just wanted to make one suggestion about that traffic light. If you decide to make some letter or send some letter to GDOT, Susan Stanton might have record of everything that went on in that meeting, because there was an awful lot of information provided. One of the most important facts is the light would be a county light. It's county property. We would have to maintain it as a city by providing electricity for that light to operate. So that's a technical distinction, but there was an awful lot of information provided which Susan might have available to you to take a look at before you make any letter to them.
We'll look back and see what we can find.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, we have one item to discuss in executive session dealing with real estate disposition. I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session, and we very well may come out and vote on the issue.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay. Okay, we need to move forward. We're going to take some action on an issue that was before us regarding the approval of a plat that was submitted by SEC, which shows a portion of Laurel Overlook being private, shows a cul-de-sac actually being developed at the intersection of Laurel Canyon Trail and Laurel Overlook. The approval for that plat would be conditioned on Laurel Overlook, no connection through the two vacant lots there, Laurel Overlook with Larkspur through the vacant lots there over toward, I guess, Laurel Creek Overlook, no connection through there. And also that there would be provided the golf cart access to the clubhouse for those who may be blocked off there with that cul-de-sac, and that access would be, the cul-de-sac would not be constructed until there was access. In other words, they have to have access before they were to get blocked off. Okay, any question? Mr. Grant?
Motion approved with those two conditions?
Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, withdraw. Thank you.